So hello and welcome back to our Lives of the NPCs, where today we are going to be taking a look at one of the most famous, or perhaps infamous, fishermen in all of Azeroth. And yes, I am speaking of none other than Nat Pagle. Nat Pagle is a fisherman who has shown up in, I think, every expansion at this point. Sometimes he's a little bit harder to find, and sometimes I haven't found him at all, but I know he's there. So the first place I figured we would go find Nat is where I guess his ancestral home is. Oh, by the way, I always love coming to Old Hillsbrad, which is where you will find Nat Pagle, just for the sheer amount of characters that you know and love just back much, much younger. So if you are doing the Escape from Durnhold dungeon and you run around and actually explore, there's quite a bit to see. But what I'm interested in today is Nat Pagle. So out at the end of the dock in South Shore is Nat Pagle and his good friend Hal McAllister. And the fun part about this, if you have the time, go out, run the dungeon, and just sit and watch the two of them. They don't respond to you if you talk to them, but if you just sit and watch, they have all sorts of conversations. In fact, they have enough conversations that you would almost think that maybe Nat is slightly psychic, at least back then, because Nat has a bunch of dreams, and he's telling Hal all about his dreams while they're fishing. In one dream, he has a dream about a mountain with a big tree and elves all around it, and a 300-foot tall demon who walks up and starts climbing the tree but gets killed by floating lights. In that dream, that was a female elf. In another dream he dreamed about the gnome Tingle creating strawberry ice cream and striking it rich. Another dream he had was about Arthas, who goes out into battle along with Uther and then becomes evil and kills everybody. And in another dream, he dreamt that he was the fishing master of the entire world and lived in Kalimdor, and people came to pay him homage and learn to fish like he was a fishing god. I think my favorite dream that he has, though, is where thousands of people were watching him from up in the sky and controlling all of the people in South Shore like they were puppets, making the people dance and cry and fight and say silly things. And Nat says sometimes even when he's awake, he thinks that those people are watching us. Maybe those people are watching us right now. And after the dreams, he'll respond in various ways, but my favorite is, "What you got in that pipe, Nat?" And that is Nat and his friend Hal out in South Shore. The first place that most people saw Nat Pagle in World of Warcraft was out here in the Dustwallow Marsh. And he used to give out a quest that would send you to Zul'Gurub and get a battered tackle box out there. You would get Nat's measuring tape, and when you would complete the quest, Nat would tell you that his favorite measuring tape, was what he used to measure the Hydra Gazaraka. Also, prior to Cataclysm, Nat used to give a repeatable quest after you would complete Nat's measuring tape, and had a fishing skill of 300 or higher. He would give you instructions for summoning Gazaraka out at Pangle's Point. He also sold the lures that you needed to get Gazaraka to come. They were the mud skunk lures, and they had to be filled with 5 Zulian mud skunks to be used. They were caught in Zul'Gurub if you had a high enough fishing skill. It was an optional boss encounter, and it could only be done once every raid lockout. But, he cannot be caught anymore because Zul'Gurub changed from being a raid to being a dungeon. Now, in-game, there were other items that Nat used to sell. He used to sell his Guide to Extreme Anglin', and it was in this book that Nat was first connected to the quest for the sword Ashbringer, because the last readable page in Nat's Extreme Angling Guide says the words, "And so that's where you'll find the legendary sword of the Scarlet High Lord Ashbringer. Ain't it amazing what you run into in an ordinary day of fishing?" The funniest thing about Nat, which if you talk to him out in the Dustwallow Marsh, he actually lets you know he doesn't actually like fishing. In fact, he says to you, "Can't say I really enjoy fishing much. Figure I've been at it for a good 20 or 30 years now, and I reckon people are driven to do what they do for different reasons." Now, I'm not saying that you need to fish for 30 years, or catch every fish in the sea to become a master fisherman. I reckon you just need to be determined. Determined enough to sit on your duff for hours at a time doing nothing. He also tells you, "If you ask me, the best part about fishing is its slow pace. It gives one time to think, to reflect on past events, and to plan for future ones. Oh, and it's also a great excuse to drink. Heavily." It's kind of implied that the entire reason that Nat likes fishing is because what Nat really likes to do is a lot of nothing and drinking. So it's kind of funny. I was digging into all of this to find out all of the things about Nat, and I found out that Nat actually has possessed or used or licensed many, many things. You can get Nat's Lucky Fishing Pole. You can get Nat's Extreme Angler FC 5000 fishing pole. You can get his extreme angling boots. The Nat's measuring tape used to be available, along with Nat Pagle's broken reel, which was a trinket. You can get Nat's Fish Terminator, another high-level fishing pole. The Arcanite fishing pole, which was also, it looks like Nat Pagle himself used this. You can get Nat's hat and Nat's drinking hat. And, of course, the Nat Pagle's Guide to Extreme Angling, and a thoroughly read Nat Pagle's Guide to Extreme Angling. During the Mists of Pandaria, Nat Pagle headed out, and he heard about the local fishermen who not only were good fishermen, but they were very friendly and very free with their brew. Which is why Nat Pagle and the anglers set up out in Kasserang Wilds. Now, in this expansion, you could actually earn reputation not only with the anglers faction, but you could earn reputation with Nat Pagle himself, and it was actually a really good idea to do so, because in this expansion, Nat started selling items to people that were his friends. And the better friend that you became to Nat, the more cool stuff that he would sell to you. Every day you could fish up one of, I think, 5 different fish. Actually, you could fish all 5 of them. And they were special fish, and when you caught them, you would get a quest that you would turn into Nat, and every fish that you gave him would get you a little bit closer to becoming best friends with him. Now, you wanted to be best friends with him not only to get the items that he sold, but also because when you became best friends with him in Warlords of Draenor, he was actually one of the secret followers that you could get at your garrison, which we will take a look at one of my characters who actually did the whole becoming besties with Nat Pagle and getting him in her garrison. Nat sold you, once you became his best friend, not only his lucky hat, but he sold what was one of the most coveted items in Pandaria, just because it was one of the only water walking items that you could get. And water walking was kind of a big deal. Nowadays, you just need to get the water walking equipment and equip any mount to become a water walking mount. But back in the day, the Azure Water Strider was pretty much your only water walking mount that you could possibly get. When you become his best friend, he will actually mail you his fishing chair. It's kind of fun. It's something that I pull out quite often when I just want to sit and fish and look like I have a best friend named Nat Pagle. So some more fun Nat Pagle facts. There was going to be a cooking tournament in Dalaran in Legion, and Nat was going to be one of the judges of that cooking tournament. I think that would have actually been a lot of fun. Nat Pagle also studied crocolisks for many, many years, and he determined that baby crocolisks are mostly harmless. The final place that I have Nat Pagle easily found is in your garrison in Warlords of Draenor, and he can actually come whether you're Horde or Alliance, but to get him to your garrison, you actually have to be best friends with him in Pandaria. And what happens is once you are friends with him in Pandaria and you have a level 3 fishing shack, there is a chance that Nat will show up while you're fishing randomly in any fishing spot in Draenor. And he'll show up and he'll say, "Howdy, any luck out here?" And then later on he'll randomly say, "Was that a dolphin? I love dolphins." And then, again, just like in Pandaria, you get to become best friends with him. And once you're best friends with him in Draenor, he sells another water strider, which I should have pulled out and mounted up on, but I forgot, because I do have it, because every once in a while I hyperfixate on these things. He will sell you the Crimson Water Strider. Looks just like the blue one, it's just red, and it only represents the fact that you were willing to get hundreds of Nat's favorite fish and become best friends with him all over again. It's a heck of a grind, but you know what? That's okay. Now, the other places that Nat can be found, and it's no wonder to me that I did not know that he was in either of these, is in Legion. He was actually in not an arena, he was in one of the battlegrounds. He was in Ashmane's Fall, I think that's a battleground. And I don't really PvP, so that is why I was never able to find Nat Pagle out in Legion, but he is actually there. Also, he is now in the Dragon Isles, and he can be found fishing out in the Onaran Plains for the legendary photography quest. So, if you are looking for Nat out in the Dragon Isles, you have to equip a camera. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. The last little fun fact that I have about Nat Pagle is actually related to who he was or is in real life. And the name Nat Pagle is a reference to Blizzard game designer Pat Nagle, who was rumored to share a lot of the same habits as Nat Pagle of drinking and fishing. And when the original profession trainer NPCs were being developed, they asked Nagle if he was okay with having the fishing trainer being named after him. And Pat Nagle said, you can do whatever you wanted. And it's said that Pat Nagle now thinks that things took off from there, and Nat Pagle is actually far more famous than Pat Nagle ever will be. Anyway, I thought that was a lot of fun. I love looking into these characters who, they're not big lore characters, but in his own little way, Nat Pagle has become a part of World of Warcraft, and a part that I really, really enjoy. So, thank you so much for listening to me stumble over my words tonight. If you have an NPC that you would like me to look into, please leave them down below. I would love to look into them, and I'll see you next time.